refuse to not be first.
Do we do enough? Well, I never shut up about it.
It must have been about 16, 17. We nicked their guilt rings. Right, the bouncer's guilt ring.
This is no good for me. That's the reality. If you want the honest truth, and I see it every day.
Razaban IFL TV proudly sponsored by Everlast. Delighted to have with me promoter Ben Shalom. Ben, fresh off his trip from Poland, how are we?
Yeah, very well. It's been a while, Raza. Good to see you, mate.
How was Poland?
It was good. You know what? It was an experience, and it's an experiment when we go into different shows and different places. And yeah, it's difficult sometimes because you're doing a job for Polish TV and having to satisfy a UK audience. That's probably a learning. Sometimes it's a very, very different fan, and it's what they want to see versus what UK want to see. For us, it was all about Jamie TKV and Martin Bacoli, and they both had good knockouts and looked very impressive. I think Jamie TKV should be getting his name now in the British heavyweight scene, which is thriving, which is amazing to see. And yeah, he's had to come up the hard way, and yeah, delighted for him because it was a devastating finish for him.
It was a huge fight in January. Chris Eubank Jr. versus Liam Smith. The rematch is finally taking place. It's now Liam Smith versus Chris Eubank Jr. Just want to clarify from yourself first the delay in making this fight. Liam Smith was extremely upset when I spoke to him last time, a couple of weeks ago in Manchester, about this fight not getting over the line or him having a day. Kalle Sauerland said up there at the press conference that we had 5 months to make the rematch. So what was the initial delay? And those rumours that are circulating was that they were trying to make that Conor Benn fight before taking on Liam Smith.
Look, I remember, if I'm honest, when they first put the rematch clause in, I would be honest, I was really against it. I didn't think it was necessary. And then even the 30 days that they went, I was almost hoping that it wouldn't be activated so we could look at another fight. Then it was activated, and then you saw what it meant for Eubank Jr.'s career and how big it was going to be. And we were obligated to then book venues, contracts. It was actually a fight that we were initially looking at in May. And yeah, it was strange because we contracted to the fight, and then suddenly you started seeing these rumours circulating. And I do believe Eubank Jr. received an enormous offer, rightly or wrongly, but fair play to Chris, because anyone that's going to get in the ring after your first knockout and a loss like that with the same man in the same arena and the same ring, people will say he had no choice, but clearly we know there was a choice. But from a boxing point of view, he didn't, and he's a boxing man, and fair enough. Because and what I saw today was a different. Yes, we saw the laughing and joking, and he's a showman, and we know all that, but he's serious. And there's a sort of a quietness around him that I've seen the past, today that is different to the first one. I know it's all showman, and there was the 50% and the 60%, but this time he knows what's on the line, and it's the big fights, and it's the big names, and it's the purses that he's become accustomed to. Yeah, it's a big fight, and the rivalry is natural now, and he needs to win. And for Liam Smith, I still make him the favourite as we did the first fight, but the same people that were saying there was no chance for Liam Smith the first fight are now the ones saying no chance for Eubank Jr. This is a very, very well matched fight, and always was. And if we can see, if Eubank Jr. gets back to the resilience and the physicality that we saw in previous fights, and the one that we know, we're in for just forget the scale of the event, forget the personalities, forget the size of it. Just from a boxing fight, I think it's a great fight. But we've got to see that Eubank Jr. Of old, and if you speak to his camp, two camps, the weight cuts, the losses, it did take its toll on his body, and that's how they feel, and that's what gives them confidence going to that fight with a more serious Chris Eubank Jr.
We know Chris is great at playing mind games. I asked Paul Smith that Chris spoke about the elbow, and he brought the elbow back in, and Paul's response was, well, if the elbow was a problem, if it was an illegal blow, why didn't you just proceed with making the complaint to the British board if you genuinely felt that it was illegal? But obviously we know that they didn't make it official. So is that Chris Jr. just being Chris Jr. and trying to get into the mind of Liam Smith?
I think so. I think clearly for me, it was conclusive, regardless of an elbow or whatever. And yeah, they could have gone to the board. To be honest, I think that would have made a mockery of it. I actually thought that was where it was going to go. I thought there was a complaint coming. I think the delay and the potential Ben fight maybe put an end to that. I don't know, but Chris Eubank Jr. is a showman, and he believes that was a freak incident and a freak accident. Whether it was the elbow, whether it was the two weight camps, whether it was the occasion, whether it the fight he hadn't fought. When was the last time he fought? Was it Liam Williams? That's a long time, isn't it? That's a long time. Yeah?
11 months.
11 months. He feels it was a freak accident. I'm not going to argue with him, but that's how he feels. For me, again, Liam Smith's still the favourite. Did I think he'd knock him out like that? No, no one did. But we have a hell of a fight because there's so much on the line, and yeah, I'm glad that Liam Smith gets a massive occasion. And yeah, whether it's the elbow, whether it's the weight camps, whether it was just the fact that Liam Smith's too good, we'll see.
Was the fight too big for it to go non-pay-per-view?
I mean, I don't want to put it on pay-per-view. I don't want to put any fight on pay-per-view, but we want to make the big fights. That's all it is. I'll be honest. Like, we're a boxing fan, we're a boxing promoter, but we want to put on the big fights. Of course, this is a bigger fight than the first one. When we announced the first one, I appreciated it and I tried to justify it. When the purse is that big, there's no choice. This is a massive fight, and it showed in the numbers, it showed in the gate, it showed in the level of interest, despite a lot of the mainstream fans not actually knowing who Liam Smith was. And Liam will understand that he was not a box office star before that fight. Now he's a box office star. Now he's the A-side. It's a much bigger fight because both the fans know this isn't a foregone conclusion. This is a serious fight, and that's how, all you have to do is look back to when we announced the first one, look at the reactions then. But yeah, we don't want to do pay-per-view. Why would we want to if we couldn't? But this is a big fight, and big fights, unfortunately, with our budgets, have to happen on pay-per-view.
Does this do more buys?
Yeah, of course it does, but it did very well last time, and I think it was the personalities, it was the tension, it was the rivalry that we saw develop, but also the fact that it's just a great fight. It is just a great fight, and it's two guys with great styles, and I think it's going to be a better fight. I would say it's going to go longer. It has to go longer because you'd expect Eubank's going to do everything he possibly can. He will leave everything in the ring this time. He knows how big that is, but yeah, it's a bigger fight because of what we said.
The week before, you've got a lot of your young guns, the Adam Azims, the Vidal, I think Callum Simpson, Aaron McKenna, Shaquille Thompson. So you've got quite a lot of your young guns going the week before. I know Savannah's on as chief support, so what does the rest of the card look like?
It's a big card. Tasha Jonas will be back, which does feel a bit too long. She was Fighter of the Year last year, so I'm really excited to have her back. But the fight I'm looking forward to is Zach Chelly against Mark Heffron, which Zach Chelly is one of those fighters that we've had that we always, and I have to be careful because I don't think he'll mind me saying this. I always think when I've watched him, he's come through our tournament, and we've gone on a long journey with him, and I always think when I watch him, this maybe he's missing something, and will it get found out the next fight, and then he corrects it, and then he improves, and then he's better in the next fight, and then it just continues. I think this is a similar situation. I think this is a massive fight. Mark Heffron's a big star in Manchester, sells a huge amount of tickets, in a great vein of form as well. That's a serious fight with two fighters, again, with great styles. It's I think it could be the breakout fight for Zach Chelly. I hope so. Of course, Mark Heffron probably be the favourite, especially in Manchester, but I hope it's the breakout fight for Zach Chelly. Florian Marcoux will return in June or July, maybe on that card, we'll see. But yeah, that night in Manchester, for me, is two main events, and then a British title like that, and Natasha Jonas, and much more to come. Yeah, it's looking forward to it.
We'll go into Eubank Jr. because I know we're going to be in Birmingham next week as well in more detail, but just some side notes as well. A lot of talk last week about Fabio Wardley and Fraser Clark from both sides. From Eddie, I did an interview with Fabio as well. Fraser done interviews, yourself done interviews. So where are we with that? Because the purse bids, I appreciate, are approaching quite quickly.
Well, there's still a fair amount of time away. I think I said last week, we've been trying to make the Fabio Wardley fight for a long time. Directly, he is a free agent, and we will continue to make that. When we say Fraser Clark could fight these names in his first fight, second fight, right? But we want him to get to world level. We want these fights to be big. We need it, like, just from a... If he fights Fabio Wardley in this next fight, which he well could do, and we've been trying to make that fight, he'll be the fastest British heavyweight title in history. I think Joe Joyce with 12 fights, Anthony Joshua maybe 14. We're happy with that, but we also want Fraser Clark to be a star, and he's lucky that we've got these British names which have done extremely well, and Fabio Wardley coming from a white-collar background to now be in the mix. David Adelaide, Jamie TKV, even Johnny Fisher. There's big fights at the British level for Fraser Clark, and he gets to have big nights on his way to hopefully world level, and we just want them to be as big as possible. That's it. We want the fights, we want them as big as possible. We feel like Fraser Clark's a box office star. We really do. The level of interest in his career after 6 fights, whether people think he's this or that, people relate to him. He's a man of the people, and to be having the impact he has in 6 fights and doing the numbers that he's doing is a special thing for him, and we want to make sure he achieves his potential, and all we're looking out for is Fraser Clark.
So can we conclude to say that the next fight would be Wardley, without doubt? Is he off that 10th card?
No, it's not without a doubt, because first of all, even if we won the purse bid, we'd have till September. And as I say, we want to make it the biggest possible. We will try and make that fight. And we have been trying to make that fight before anyone. What I was also saying was, I was surprised to see it. Whether I'm happy about it or not, I was surprised to see a purse bid ordered, because he's had 6 fights, and usually the ball go by. Like, you've got David Adelaide there having 11 fights, 10 knockouts. Fraser Clark seems to be ordered because of his amateur pedigree and this and that. Again, I'm happy with it. It's a fight that we wanted to make, but it's a fight that we were making anyway. We didn't need a purse bid to say it must be then and it must be now, must be in this month, especially when, as I say, he's had 6 fights. And but Fraser Clark wants the biggest fights. He's made that very clear. We will deliver them, and we're going to try and deliver them in the best possible way for him.
Another comment made from that side, again, Eddie Hearn, Frank Smith both did interviews. They both laughed at your comment when you referred to Martin Bakole and Deontay Wilder, and it's a fight that needs to happen next. Just your reaction from, I'm sure you've seen the clips from Eddie and Frank Smith.
It's our job to make noise about Martin Bakole, and he certainly did that last week. And I think for us, we know it's unrealistic from a business sense, but from a sporting sense, he is number 2. Deontay Wilder is number 1. Usyk is being ordered against Dubois. If rules and regulations are followed, which of course it doesn't seem like they ever are in boxing, then that would be ordered. That would be an interim fight. We can all laugh and say, "Oh, of course it's not going to happen," but that's again why, unfortunately, this is always a business rather than a sport, and that's fair enough. But we've seen with Alexander Usyk, he forced his way into a mandatory, and now he's king of heavyweight division. And all we want to do is get Martin Bakole in positions where he can force mandatories, because of course people aren't going to choose to fight him.
I mean, they laughed at that comment. Did you take offence to that at all? Or?
No, look, we I take it as a compliment. I'm in my 20s. The fact that the headlines are about what I say is funny, because even in my lads' WhatsApp group, it's funny. It's good. I take it as a compliment. I don't want to be necessarily in the headlines. I want to avoid it. I'd love to have a good relationship with them like I have with George Warren. It makes it so much easier. It makes fights so much easier. It makes boxing so much better. I'll just keep trying to avoid it. That's all I can do. But I find that, it's difficult. We'd like a good relationship, and we'll continue. It's almost a bit like water off a duck's back, because to anyone that wants to come into this industry like we've done is going to have thick skin, and that's what we do.
Ben, there are many more questions, but I do appreciate there are quite a few people still waiting for you, so I'll allow them to have some time with you as well, not be selfish. Appreciate your time as always, and yeah, roll on next week. Joshua Boatsy returns in Birmingham.
Yeah, look, it's our May, June, Boatsy, Whittaker, Lauren Price's British title in Birmingham. Then we've got Okoli CBS, Lawal Chamberlain, Pigford Eggington May 27th. Then Azim, Fanian in a step up that, for me, from a boxing perspective, is shows the level of Adam Azim against the headline at York Hall. Aaron McKenna fights Shaquille Thompson, which is a crazy fight for them, a crossroads fight for them both to be taken. And then we're into the big one with Eubank Smith, double header with Savannah Marshall against Cruz and Chelly Heffron. A big May and June. It's great for boxing. The schedules on all networks are great at the moment. I really believe May and June is going to be a big couple of months, and yeah, really looking forward to it.
Ben Shalom, IFL TV, thank you very much.
Because I refuse to not be first.
Do we do enough? Well, I never shut up about it.
It must have been about 16, 17. We nicked their guilt rings. Right, the bouncer's guilt ring.
This is no good for me. That's the reality. If you want the honest truth, and I see it every day,